I've made my own teleportation machine. Check it out. Just kidding, guys. This is the new printer from elegoo. This is the Orange Storm GIGA or GIGA. Anyway, this is a huge printer and the printing volume is of almost 1 meter cubic, which is huge. You can literally almost print yourself with this printer. Don't take this as a review, it's just my experience. I've only used it for like a week and so. So this is not a review. elegoo give me this for free, but they haven't paid me anything. It's just for me to give them a feedback. So take it as it is. It's not a review. Also, I don't know when will be the official release because this was a Kickstarter and they have so many orders to back on the Kickstarter site that I don't really know when the official release on elegoo page will be. So in this video you'll see the difficulties that I have to assemble it and the first tests and the things that I fixed, for example the firmware, because now the firmware works perfectly. For me it went very well, and I will show you how it prints, how to prepare it and so on, and also talk a bit about the specs. That being said, let's get started. What's up my friends, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about this huge machine that barely fits inside of my workshop. Actually, I don't usually have it here, I have it placed right there. Anyway, this is the Orange Storm GIGA or GIGA, however you want to call it, and this was backed on Kickstarter, so I'm not sure of the official release date because they have so many orders on Kickstarter that I'm not sure when they will be able to post it on their website and sell it. Anyway, that being said, let's not waste any more time and start with the first chapter, how you receive it and the unbox. Okay, so just for you to have an idea, this is one of the boxes that you receive the printer in. And I say one of the boxes because there are two boxes for just one printer. I first thought that they sent me two printers and they've come with a huge truck. They had to lower them with an elevator and so on. I try to place some pictures on the screen right now to see how big these are, because right now I'm not sure if you can see it, but you can get the size of these boxes. So no, there weren't two printers, it was just one but divided into two boxes. So have in mind that if you receive it, you need a big door and also you need access to your home or to your garage, to your workshop, because this will come like this in huge boxes. And they needed two boxes because this printer is huge. So in one box you'll have like the printing bed or the main frame that is down and some extra components like the screen, the toolkit and so on. And in the other box you have the sides, and that's it, the sides and these bars right here. That's why you need two boxes, and these are huge. Okay guys, so now I've took the box from the way, and I can also tell you that you receive it very well secured in place with some typical foam, and the foam box is huge, so they are well protected. They're also closed with some plastic ribbons inside and some more supports, so during shipping they won't bend. So I receive it very well secured. In one box we had the main base with the bed, which was already 100% assembled. You don't have to assemble anything for the main base. We also have the printing gantry, which is this Y and X axis, and the accessories such as the screen, the spool holder, a toolbox with the screws and everything that you have inside. We'll take a look in a moment what you receive exactly in that box. And in the other huge box we have the sides, which is this one here, the other one, and these two bars, and I think these brackets, and that's it. That's why we needed two boxes. Okay, so now for the actual unbox, I've told you that in one box you get the sides, which are also 100% assembled. All you have to do is to just screw it with the rest of the parts. So we'll see that the assemble process is very quick. And two bars, which are this one and the other bar, and some brackets. That's what you receive in one box. But in the other one you receive the main base and also a bunch of tools. I have the calibrating plates, I have the screen, a spool of 1 kilogram of PLA material. You have two spool holders, which is this one and another one with some rollers if you want to use those big spools of more than 1 kilogram. And you receive the extruder, also the user manual, and a box of tools. And now I'll tell you what you receive in that inside of that box. Okay, and to finish the unbox, I want to tell you everything that you receive inside of this box. First of all, you get the typical, the power cord, you get an Ethernet cable in order to connect this to internet, but it also has Wi-Fi, we'll talk about that later. And you get all the screws that you need for the machine, and these are quite big screws. Also the tools, the Allen keys, some clippers and so on. And then you get two sensors for the filament. One is for this spool holder and the other one is for the spool holder that I already have there in place. The sensors are the same, but one gets screwed directly on that support and the other one gets with this support. And this is made for some bigger filament rolls, like 3 kilos, 4 kilos and so on. And the other one is for the typical 1 kilo roll of filament. But the sensors are the same. And also inside of this box you get some extruder tips made out of copper, because by default this extruder comes with a 0.6mm nozzle, but you also have other nozzles here to spare, and one is of 0.4, 0.8 and also 1mm nozzle. And that's something that I want to talk about. So in just a few moments we'll talk about these extra nozzles that they give you, because that's, I think, is something that I would change about this printer. But now let's pass, since we already finished the first chapter, which is how you receive it and the unbox, let's just pass to the next chapter, which will be some quick specs about this printer, all the specifications. Okay, so let's start with the specs. I don't want to lose any time, so I'll go fast with this. First of all, the printing volume is of 800 by 800 millimeters and a height of 1000 millimeters. So you can print very big objects. For example, if you remember, like more than 1 year ago, I wanted to print my huge Tiger 1 tank, and that was made with very small parts because I had to print it with a normal printer. But instead of printing separate parts and then merge them together with screws, with this one I could print directly the entire case of the tank in just one print. Obviously it will take like 3-4 days or even more. And next, as I've already told you, the default nozzle is of 0.6 millimeters, but you also get the 0.4, 0.8 and 1mm nozzles. And about the printing speed, it could work up to 300 millimeters per second, which is pretty nice. I mean, I do have some faster printers, but since this one is so big and it has to move so much mass, 300 millimeters per second is fine for me. And also it works with the caliper firmware, which is very nice to have. You can connect it offline with Wi-Fi and have all the configuration and the data on your PC, for example. So it's very nice to have that firmware installed on this machine. And now another spec, or maybe a cool feature about this printer, is the use of multiple extruders at the same time. So you could have multiple extruders placed here, like for example 4 extruders, and print, I mean, you can print different things with each extruder. You would print the same thing but multiple times. And as you can see here on the back, we have more wires for the filament sensor. We have 1 here, 2, 3 and 4. So you can add 4 spool holders and 4 sensors, and each connected to each one of the 4 nozzles of the 4 extruders. So for multiple prints, you could print 4 times faster, which is a very nice thing to have, multiple extruders. And above this extruder, as you can see, is not a Bowden type. This is a direct drive extruder. It has a quite big heating block, and it also has a heater of 60 watts, and it could reach 300 degrees, which for me is more than enough for printing ABS, PETG, PLA, any kind of material that I have right now in my workshop. And the design is quite cool. We have double fans, one on each side to cool the print. We have another fan inside, and also the separator between the heating block and the motor is quite cool. And as you can see on the back of the extruder, you can see some kind of PCB with maybe an encoder or another chip. So that tells me that it might have a slip detection. So if the extruder slips, it can detect that and maybe even overcompensate. I'm not sure about that, but just by seeing the PCB on the back of the extruder, it tells me that it has some kind of microcontroller or maybe even a sensor inside of it. As you can see, it's made out of 4 beds of 400 by 400, which is maybe one of the parts that I would change. We'll talk about that in just a few moments. But these are, in order to be more efficient, they can be controlled separately. So if you are printing just in this side of the bed, you can only hit this one here and not the other ones. Because, by the way, another spec about this printer, it could use up to 1500 watts, which is quite a lot. I mean, just before when I made that print, it reached 1200 watts, which luckily for me, my breakers are of up to 2000 watts, so I didn't have any problem with that. But if you have breakers, your circuit breakers of your home, that go to, let's say, 1000 watts, it will definitely break, because this one can use a lot of power, especially if you use 4 beds at a time. But as I was telling you, it can use them efficiently, so you can only hit up one and not the others, 1 or 2 and not the others, so it will use only the power for that specific bed. Okay, and the next spec about this printer is the auto level, which for me was quite good. But yes, I know there are a lot of other videos online that are talking about this, that the auto level didn't work. But for me, luckily, since I received this printer a little bit late, they already sent me the new firmware. So all I had to do was to open this up and place an SD card with the new firmware for the UI. and also insert the SD card, the pen drive, into the machine and click the update button, and it passed from the 0.0 version to the 0.1. So basically from, I think it was 3.4.0 to 3.4.1, something like that. So now I have the new version, and all I had to do was to just make a click and it was auto leveled in just 10 minutes or so. And I also noticed that the other versions had 10 points for the auto level, but this now has 11 points. So it's very easy to calibrate. We will see how to do that in just a moment. So the auto level for me worked great. Auto leveled, just click print, and in just a few minutes I had a print already going on. And by the way, I said 11 points, but it's 11 by 11. So total of 121 points on the entire bed, which for me worked great. I had no problems with that. So I think that with the new firmware they fixed that error, and now it works great. And about the display, it's 7-inch and it's all colored, and the UI is great. I think this is based on the next-gen display because I opened it up and it's looked like next-gen display, and even when you update it, you get the typical text from next-gen, like uploading the new UI. But it works great, great touchscreen, and the buttons are very big, so it's very difficult for you to miss a button. It's quite nice to have it, and I like it a lot. And about the slicing software, you can use it with Cura or with Orca, and I've talked with the elegoo people and they've already sent me all the settings for Orca and I've got them installed, and I think the speed is maybe just a little bit lowered because it could go up to 300 millimeters, but by default it's set to 60 up to 100, but I can increase that and get really fast prints. So Cura and Orca for the slicing softwares. And then as extra, as always, we have filament detection, power loss detection. It has LAN control, Wi-Fi control, and you can just print directly from the SD card, which is something very common for these printers. Okay, so that's it for this chapter, for the specs, and we can pass to the next chapter of this video, which is the assembly. How is it to assemble it, and also the build quality of the entire machine. Okay, so now let's talk about the assembly experience, because I bet that you are a little bit scared because this is a huge printer and you might think that it's very difficult to assemble. But no, it was very easy to assemble, actually even faster than some other of my printers, and that's because all the parts that you get are pretty much 100% assembled. All you have to do is to add some screws, create a box, and that's it. Actually, you have just a few steps in the user manual, very well explained. So the first thing that you have to do is to place the base, and then on top of the base, you will place this side and the other side, which are already assembled, 4 screws on the bottom, another 4 screws on the other side, and then you add the brackets. And then you have to add these bars here, one on each side, and then you add the gantry, which is already 100% assembled, 4 screws on this side and 4 on the other side. And that's it. That's it for the assemble of the actual machine, the physical body of the machine. And I know that in the video you will see that I have different clothes, but that's not because it took me too long, but it's because, as you know, I now have a baby. I had to stop and continue with the assembly the other day, but it was very easy. If I were to assemble it without stopping, I think it will be like half an hour. And probably the most difficult part, it will be the weight, because if you're not strong enough, this might be difficult to assemble by yourself, so it will be a job for two people. But in my case, I had no problem with that. Just add a body, add the screws, and that's it. And about the body, it is very well built. I mean, the shape and the size is something that we'll talk about in the chapter about the things that I don't like. But as build quality, everything is made out of extruded metal. Everything is custom made for this printer. The brackets are very thick. The bolts and the screws that are using are 6mm or 8mm, very big, and it's a very stable printer. And that's very important because if you were to print up to 1 meter, usually the prints tend to get less stable on the top side. But since this is very well made, I mean, look at this linear screw and this smooth rod. They're very thick. I think this is 2 centimeters smooth rod. That's huge. That's why this is so heavy. The build quality is very good, and since this is very heavy, which is very important, for example, for a washing machine, they literally add some weight inside in order to reduce vibration. But since this is already made out of metal and is so heavy, that already will reduce the vibration, so the printer almost doesn't move. Together with some rubber feet that you have on the bottom, you could even add some foam on the bottom to reduce even more the vibration. You get a very stable printer. So one part that I like are the lead screw and the smooth rod, because they are very big and you have 4 of them, so the entire gantry is very stable. And I also like the cable management. They use these plastic cases, and all the wires are passing inside, so you have no loose wire whatsoever. Maybe the filament is a bit strange, but for the wires, for the electrical wires, everything is well secured inside. The high voltage is inside, so it's quite secure to handle it. In general, the build quality is very good for such a big machine and such a low cost machine compared with other industrial made machine, because since this is so big, it's usually more industrial than for just a small project. Once you edit all the screws, like in 20 minutes or so, all you have to do is to connect all the wires. Already has a tag for the place and the connection that you have to make. We have a few wires here, one for each motor and the limit switches, and that's it. The cable management is very well done. All you have to do next is to connect the cable for the extruder, and that's it. In just half an hour you could have this printer ready. I think it took me more to unbox the printer and also record it than to assemble the actual printer, because everything is already made. And all is left to do is to level the printer, which will be the next chapter. So how is to level the printer, and also how to prepare the prints and the printing process. So guys, how is to calibrate this printer? For sure, if you're planning to get such a printer, you've already watched a few reviews on the internet. I mean, don't take this video as a review, because I haven't used this printer too much. It's just my experience, the first experience that I have, and how to assemble it and make the first print. But in my case, I had no problems with the auto level system, because that's something that in other reviews I've seen that people got a lot of errors with. But in my case, since I've already installed a new firmware, I had no problems. It was just one click, and then I will try to place on the screen the video. It went point by point, the 121 points. It took like 10 minutes or even less. And at the end, it asks you to make the typical test with a piece of paper below the extruder and lower it till it barely touches the point. You save that offset, and that will just calibrate the entire bed. And then I could print without any problems, because all the levels got stored into the machine. I think that was the problem that other people had with the previous versions, that the auto level works fine, but they didn't correctly save the values into the machine. So each time that you start a new print, the values of the auto level weren't stored on the memory, so it would be like you haven't made the auto level to begin with. But in any case, if you have some problems, they give you these metal sheets, and this bed here, this is magnetic and can be removed. So you can remove this bed, and then you have to add this one, which, as you can see, it has some holes. And these holes will go exactly in front of the screws that you have in the bed, and each bed would have 9 screws. And you have to go one by one and adjust the height. So I hope that you will have the new firmware, because if you have to calibrate this by hand, it will be a total mess. I've seen some other videos, took them like 2 up to 3 or 4 hours to calibrate the entire bed, because you have to go one by one. And the crazy thing is that without the auto level, leveling the bed manually is useless, because you have to manage to get each bed separately to be leveled, but at the same time it has to be leveled with the other bed, because if you level this one and you level the other one, there might be a height difference in between, even if this one is leveled and this one is leveled. So imagine do that with 2 more. It's very difficult. Actually, if I were to design this printer, I would have made a big metal sheet that would get leveled, and then on top of that I would add the 4 beds, which will be perfectly horizontal, and you have to adjust the level of the entire metal plate, not of each of the 4 beds, because it's almost impossible to get all the beds exactly on the same height, on the same level. That's why having the auto level is a lot easier, because you can make that in code, and making the level in the code is a lot easier, because you can fade it in and start with a few layers, and then gradually make it smoother and smoother till you get a perfectly flat print. And that's why Elegoo sent us these printers to test them and report back. And luckily, with the new firmware, I had no problems, and I hope that if you buy this printer or you have backed it on Kickstarter, you get it with the new firmware, which already works with auto level. Okay, but the next step is to print something, so you could use Cura or Orca to do that. In my case, I've used Orca. Elegoo passed me the profiles. You insert those profiles into Orca, and you can just slice the part, copy that G-code into the SD card, press print, and it will start printing, and that's it. But just something to have in mind. If you want to print very big objects, obviously the G-code will also be very big. And printing from an SD card you might not have any problem, especially if the SD card is very fast. But if you were to print via Wi-Fi or maybe even directly from your PC, have in mind that for 3 or 4 days this machine will be printing and printing a very large file, and that might result into some errors. So make sure that you use a very good SD card, I mean very good pen drive, and print directly from the pen drive, not from a PC or Wi-Fi, especially for the big prints. I haven't made any big printer yet with this machine, but just to have that in mind that for big prints, the G-code file is also very big. Okay, so for the next chapter, it will be the parts that I will change about this printer. And that's because while assembling this printer, and also when I've made the calibration and the first print, I realized a few things that I don't like about this printer. For example, the position of the spool holder. It's right there in the back. Right now I have the printer here, but my idea is to place it there against the wall. So imagine that you are here and you want to change the filament. It's impossible to reach it. It's too far away, so you have to come on the side. Obviously you have to have space on the side, because if you have a wall here, you can't. You have to go to the other side. You have to go here on the back and then reach the spool holder. So that's something that I would change, because I don't like the position. I will add something maybe here in the middle, to be easier to access. And I know that you get this other support for the spool, but this you have to place it, you have to place it on the ground, like this, and it will sit along your printer, occupy a lot more space. And that's something that I don't like about this printer, the space that it will occupy. And I know this is big, but hear me out. Obviously, I do understand that since the print volume is so big, you need a big frame for the printer. But that's not the part that I don't like. What I don't like is that you have a lot of empty space all around the bed. So in my opinion, if I were to redesign this printer, what I would do is to make the box below just a little bit higher to fit everything below, let's say maybe 7 centimeters higher. How high is a power supply? Like 5 centimeters, something like that. So you could fit all the power supplies below and have a lot of air flowing in between to cool them down, the power supplies, the MOSFETs and everything that you have to power the machine. And like that you will make the printer to be as close as possible to the size of the bed, because as you can see, we have like 10 or 12 centimeters all around, and that is a lot of squared centimeters all around of extra space that you don't need. That's why this printer is so big. But if you compare with the size of the bed, I'm sure that you could make it even smaller. And don't get me wrong, I know that this is a great design, but since you already have such a big machine, just make it a little bit taller, fit everything below, because you already have like more than 1 meter of height. Just add a few more centimeters, add everything below, and that will get you a smaller body compared to the printing volume of the printer. The printing bed is of 800 millimeters, and the printer has 123 centimeters, so 1200 centimeters. And that is 400 centimeters more, so half of the butt of the printing plate is added to the sides of the printer. So yeah, if I were to redesign this printer, I will maybe make it a little bit smaller and a little bit taller and fit everything below. Another thing that I don't like is the position of this cable for the screen, and also that the SD card is fitted low there. Because since this is a big printer, I would like to insert the SD card above here and not have to go down. Also, if I were to place this on the ground like it's here, I don't think anyone would place this huge printer and heavy printer on top of a table. I'm pretty sure that everyone will have it on the ground. So just imagine that I will pass through here in front of the printer, and like that, there is a possibility that I will kick with my leg the cable or the SD card and break it. At least place it here on the side, not in front of the printer, but the best position would be to place it here, maybe just add a connector and a wire inside here of the metal bar, and add a stick here, add the SD card here, and also the connection for the screen also here on the top. Because that's something that I don't like, to have all that below there on the bottom side of the printer. And the last part I don't like about this printer, as I've told you in the beginning, is the size of the nozzle. I mean, by default it comes with a 0.6 millimeter nozzle, which I know it's bigger than the 0.4 that I have with my other printers. But come on, this printer is for very big prints. I would like to directly start with a nozzle of 1 millimeter, and also the filament that it uses is of 1.75 millimeters. I would like to go with the 3 millimeter filament and have a lot more flow. Since the extruder has so much power and it can melt the plastic very fast, I would like to have more flow of filament and not use the 1.75 filament and use the bigger one. So I do understand why elegoo selected the 0.6mm nozzle, because that's closer to the entire market, because if you want to print something very small with details, you'll have to change the nozzle. But if you want to print something big, it will take a lot more because the height and the thickness of the wall would be a lot smaller. But in my opinion, if you do buy this printer, which is big, it's because you want to make big prints. If you want to make very small prints, you'll get an older printer like this one. So since you are shipping a huge printer, just add the biggest nozzle, the 1mm nozzle, and also maybe make it with pellets or with a filament that is a lot thicker, so you can get more flow and melt more plastic at the same time. So that's something I don't like about this printer, that by default is a 0.6 instead of 1mm. In my opinion, maybe others will like that. So guys, that's pretty much everything that I know about this printer at this date. The parts that I like, the parts that I would change about this printer. I know that I haven't showed you a lot of prints because I haven't used it for, I think this is the second week that I have this printer, so I only have a few prints, and all of those prints were quite small. So the real test would be to print big, like prints of at least 3 days. And I'm not ready for that. I will be when I'll have my new workshop, or as I've told you, make a print, pause it by night, and resume it once again the next day. But till then I can share more prints with you. But the print quality was quite good. But now the real question is how it will print when I will change the nozzle tip to 1mm, and how to increase the flow and print a lot faster and a lot bigger, like furniture, my tank, or any other project that could be quite large, without waiting for 2 weeks of printing time. And the best thing is that the firmware was fixed, so in my case the auto level worked perfectly. I had no problem with that, so all I had to do was to just click a button, wait for 10 minutes, and it was all leveled, and then you could print. And that was the main issue with some of the other printers that I've seen online, others Storm GIGA, and hopefully now everyone will have the updated version and it will work like a charm. Now the printer is quite big, very well built, and I do like it, but right now I can't really use it for the projects that I want to make because of my baby and the sounds that it makes. But as soon that I will be able to print my tank or any other print that will take a few days, I will share that with you. I hope that this video will help you. Once again, this is not a review. Have in mind that elegoo didn't pay me, but did give me this printer for free. I'm not sure about the final price because this was a Kickstarter. The post is not ready on the internet, so I'm not sure about the final price. It will be between $1,500 and $2,500, more or less. I'm not sure about the final price, and I'm not sure about the option that you will get, if you will get more extruders or no, and so on. I hope that you like this video. If so, comment below, give me a like, and keep up, you guys. Hey guys, so that was another project and I hope that you like it. As you all know, to buy all these modules, a huge help from you is from Patreon. So if you want to support me, you can support me there, but also just commenting below, giving me a like or sharing this video, it will also support my channel. So thank you very much to all my patrons and to you guys.